Now we see you. All right,
Yes.
the platform is all yours. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ashton. Thanks for having me again here. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys in Thursday morning meetings. Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen. Where is it? Screen. Okay, so can you see this screen properly?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so today we want to talk about legal basement and why is that important to all the landlords and tenants in Ontario. Uh, You've already introduced me. I'm a licensed paralegal and I work with a lot of landlords and tenants to help them with their legal issues. I'm a founder of the Yusufian Legal Services, and just for your reference, today's presentation is not legal advice. And for each situation and a specific situation, actually, you need to go to a lawyer or a paralegal. So why having a legal basement is important? Nowadays, we need to maximize our rental income because of the mortgage prices, because people, they need a side income, whatever that is. We need to make sure that our basement is legally rentable. So a legal basement is a unit that complies with the municipal zoning bylaws, Ontario building codes, and Ontario fire code regulations, health and safety requirements. So not every basement is good for renting it out. So if you hear that, oh, buy this house, you're gonna rent out the main floor and you're gonna rent out the basement separately, you're gonna be perfectly fine. That can be challenging sometimes. It's not always true. So why this compliance matters? It avoids fines and eviction issues and legal disputes. We don't want to put our clients, like specifically you don't want to open up your client to landlord and tenant court disputes, to city by law issues, right? So if you're buying a property for your client, make sure if they want to do rental business or they want to rent out the basement, we need to make sure that either the rental, the unit, the basement is a legal unit or it can be converted to a legal unit, right? Sometimes it's not a legal unit, but we can obtain permits and sometimes it meets the specifications of the legal permit. So that brings profitability to our clients. And if you want to do the investment yourself, good for you. So these are the rules and the compliance that we need to make sure to follow. Ontario legal requirements for basement apartments. Uh, we have to make sure that it complies with the building codes, the fire safety regulations, electrical and plumbing standards. For example, the minimum ceiling height is roughly around 2 meters, right? Some basements they have lower ceilings. Some basements they don't have any alternative exits or proper windows. Small windows, they're not gonna do it. So make sure you bring in an inspector. Make sure that the rental units must follow the bylaws. And remember this, not every municipality they allow legal basement. So you have to make sure that the zoning laws they will allow us to have that kind of legal units, right? Landlord's responsibilities. We have to make sure that unit is habitable for the tenants. We have to make sure that unit is safe, clean, well maintained, and equipped with all functional heating, electricity, and water. Sometimes, Ashton, there's an issue with the heat or with the AC, right? Because most of the actually houses, they share the same ventilation and same heating system. So we have to make sure that everything is good for the basement unit as well, because most of the time the temperature is adjusted only for the main floor, right? So we have to make sure that the person living in the basement, uh, we are taking care of them as well. If you have to provide additional heater or whatever it is, because there are some minimum heat requirements laws as well, which we can mention another time. Okay, so what is a tenant right? It's still, if that's our basement, it doesn't mean that that's not a rental unit. We have to treat it as a rental unit, like we have to treat all other units. A landlord cannot just simply evict the tenant because without legal grounds. And like I can't say this is my basement, I want it tomorrow, right? I have to follow the per right residential tenancy acts, and I have to follow and go to the landlord and tenant board if I have to. The maintenance rights, the tenant has all the rights to the maintenance, and especially the 24-hour notice. This is important, Ashton, because a lot of time people, they just go there because they need to use laundry, they need to change the filter or whatever it is, they need to check plumbing sometimes or the electrical system. They have to give 24 hours written notice, or they need to have approval if they want to do less than 24 hours notice from the tenant, right? This can open the landlord to a big lawsuit. So the common legal issues that we want to talk about today. Illegal basement units, you can have a risk of fines and forced eviction. This can cause like fines that people they want to avoid, or forced eviction, which will cause loss of rental income. For example, if we are just doing separate units, renting out the main floor and the basement separately. If the rental unit is not a legal basement, and if we have to evict the downstairs tenant, then we're gonna be left only with the main floor income, which I don't believe the landlord will be happy with this kind of situation, right? And we cannot just simply evict the main floor tenant saying, oh, I don't want you here anymore. I want to rent the whole unit to somebody else. So we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. So if there is a dispute for the repairs or maintenance, still the tenant has the right to go to the landlord and tenant board or call the municipal bylaw enforcement. And sometimes they do, and that goes against the landlord, because they come and inspect and say, listen, this is not a rental unit, this is not a legal unit, you should not have anyone living here. So about the rent increases, we have to still comply with the rent increase rules for landlord and tenant board. And here is an exemption. If the rental unit is built after a certain date, which is about November 2018, let's say 2019, those units, they can be exempt from that 2.5% of this year's annual guideline rent increase, right? So if somebody wants to convert their basement to a rental unit, I believe this is a good time to do. Now, we have to verify a basement is legal. We have to check the municipal zoning bylaws and permits, because this has nothing to do with the LTV. We need to go to the city, we have to talk to the bylaw offices. And we have to make sure that it complies with the fire safety laws. We have to make sure that the secondary suite is registered, because that will be a totally separate unit, right? So I have also included the risks of selling or renting legal basements. The real estate agents, they can be open up for liability. I've heard from my friends that they cannot advertise a basement unit, which is not a legal unit, right? But some people they do, and they can be financial losses. I've heard that units with legal basements, uh they get the mortgage approval easier because that can be counted as a rental income, right? So, and we need to make sure that uh, if there's any disputes, it goes to the landlord and tenant board, and we cannot evict the tenant ourselves, even if the city comes here and says, listen, this is not a legal unit, right? So I would recommend you to educate your client and tell them, oh, this is unit does not, this house does not have a rental unit downstairs. Either you need to convert it or rent out the entire house to someone, not to two different people. So I would say if you want to buy it and if you want to turn that unit into a rental unit, especially the basement, make sure that you do the inspections before the purchase, right? Disclose all the legal statute of the basement apartments in the listings, the legal status, sorry. And make sure that you disclose all the statutes, the regulation with your client, and so they're on the safe side, and you will have a happy client at the end too, right? And talk to us, talk to real estate lawyers. Maybe they know what happens and they know better, right? So if there is an issue, if someone has rented out their basement and the city has uh come in and saying this is not a legal unit and you have to convert it either into a legal basement or you have to evict the tenant, then talk to us. Maybe we have a solution for you, right? Don't do the paperwork yourself because it may take years to just evict the tenants if you want to do that. So basically, that's it for today's presentation. I wanted to just be brief, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thank you very much, Daniel. Let's open here for conversation. If there is anyone has any question, let me know. Just jump here. You have to unmute yourself. Few points that Daniel brought up is how we write things in our description on MLS. For instance, I've seen people um, offering basement for rental properties. Now, knowing that basement is not legal basement. So you will be held accountable by misleading the purchaser. They buy because you mentioned that you can rent the basement and it's not a legal basement. So it will punch you back. So be careful of what you put on the listing. If it's not legal, don't try to promote it as the legal basement for rental. And there are other things that I've seen the agents put in there. For instance, if you're renting a place, you cannot write no pet, no smokers. That's discriminations. They can go against you. No one does, as far as I know. But these are you're not permitted to write discriminatory description. You can come up with a conversation and tell the owner has allergy, for instance, to pet, which is okay, and that's why they don't accept pet. But you cannot write down smokers and pet owners as something that you don't want to have it in your house for rental. And just be careful what you put on your description. Any question here? Daniel, what's the most recent things came out about home renovations? And can you elaborate on that? That was very interesting.
Actually, that is a new law, and I believe it is in the city of Toronto. I'm not sure. I haven't fully studied that yet, but the laws with the renovations, they call it renovictions, they're changing, right? They need to have the permit uh before evicting the tenant. They need to satisfy the board as well why they want to evict the tenant, right? So we always had it, and I had one case which the buyer purchased a unit, actually a house. It was a triplex. However, the basement, it is not a legal unit, right? And he's been dealing with this tenant and going back and forth for eviction, and it's about 4 years that he's dealing with this kind of issue, right? Because there were some complications with the file paperwork for 2 times, and then I handled the case, and we had to go to 2 hearings, which one is in February actually this year that I have to attend the hearing. So let's say it can be quite challenging if we want to evict the tenant, right? So we need to make sure that the compliance is there before we want to go for eviction for the tenant.
So one of the things I see agents putting on the MLS sheet here is you're responsible to take the measurement of the basement or any room or check the tax. Now, remember, you can write it down. It does not protect you if they come back, said, listen, the information you put here is wrong. And you tell them, listen, I put on the MLS that you're responsible. It doesn't really matter. You as a listing agent you are responsible to put the right information there as much as you could. So don't bounce the responsibility to the buyer agents. It won't work. You can write it down, but you are the primary responsible person that put the information on them. So be careful. That's another thing that would hunt you back if you don't pay attention. Now,
That
the
is
new laws, as
absolutely
far as
right.
I remember, if you want to renovate, and I had that case in the past, if you want to renovate, let's say, kitchen or the entire house, the tenant is there, and the renovation is massive to the point that has health hazards to the tenant. So you can ask them to leave. But with new laws, I'm not sure if that's happened anywhere else or not. But with new laws, you have to pay for the tenants, I think the difference rent, to move them to another place. It stays there for the time being. Let's say you charge them $2,000 and the new place is 3,000, then you have to pay $1,000 the difference for the tenant in a new place. And once you upgrade your entire house, you have to ask him or her if they want to come back, and you charge them with the same amount that you used to charge them. So, to my opinion, it's not fair, but it is what it is. So be
Yeah.
careful. The other thing you have to watch here is the bylaw of every city. For instance, if you go to Milton, as far as I know, you cannot expect a semi to have a legal basement because based on the city's bylaw, only detached homes can have legal basement. Now, I know there are a lot of owners are pushing the city to change this one from detached homes only to semi as well, but just be careful with bylaws of every single city. There might be some differences. Daniel, did you have any experience with legal basement not being legal basement? It was mispresented, those kind of issues that you took.
Yeah, actually, this case is the same because when my client purchased this property, the league with the basement, they had the tenant in there, right? So, and when he wanted to sell it, I don't know if it was from the purchaser's perspective or whatever it is, uh, the bylaw officers, they got involved, and now he has to deal with this kind of tenant, right? So it's not easy to sell, it's not easy to convert into a legal unit. So actually they can put fines, and they're going to be dealing with the landlord, right? Even if you're purchasing a unit which already has the tenant inside, you need to make sure that that rental unit is uh, legally compliant with everything. Otherwise, even if they're there for many years and nobody is touching it, it doesn't mean that the landlord will not face any issues, right? So, but most of the time they do it, unfortunately, and they do it without any requirements. And I'm not sure if from insurance perspective, if something happens, they're gonna be held liable or not. So that's something else to discover. Thanks God I didn't have any cases like that, but if you're doing it, you need to notify your insurance. And if you don't have a legal basement, then I don't believe legally you can let anyone to live there, right? And especially if, God forbid, a fire happens or something like that, there can be liabilities.
All right, thank you very much. Any question for Daniel or for myself?
Yes. Hi, I have a question. Can I
Yeah.
ask?
Sure.
Ashton, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. Hi, Danielle.
Yeah.
I just few questions. Um, since houses built after 2018 is exempt from 2.5%,
Okay.
what's the maximum landlord allowed to increase it? Is it basically market price or whatever they want to?
The law does not specify any limitations, so I guess there are no limitations, right? But usually what happens, it's the market price, because if they want to do something unreasonable,
Yes.
then they're gonna say no, right? Uh, the reason that they opened up this new regulation and the exemptions from the rental uh the maximum guideline increase is that people they want to encourage people to get into the rental market, right? They want more landlords. I'm not sure if that happened or not, but it's conflicting, right? It's some people they're expecting the same 2.5% increase, but that happens sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't happen, right? Not everyone is knowledgeable about
Yes.
that law. We are becoming more and more knowledgeable about it now, even that it was issued and passed in 2018, right? But because of COVID,
Yeah.
because of lack of knowledge and lack of, let's say, advertising, more and more people they're knowing it now and they're trying to use it, right? I don't believe
Yeah.
they can increase it as much as they want practically, but in terms of the regulation, I don't have any specific answer for you. There is no limit.
Sure.
I think
But
that,
and if landlord increase, oh, sorry,
no, I said it goes with the rent, current rent in the market. For instance, if the condos, one bedrooms all go for $2,000, you said, well, you know what? I bought my house yesterday. I want to increase it to $6,000. Good luck. No one's going to
Yeah.
take you. So you have to be comparable with the rest of the market, whatever is happening.
yes. But if the tenant's not happy, I mean, has to leave. Like cannot say sorry, I'm not gonna pay, and the landlord at this point has a right to evict the tenant, right? This is what my price is. You can't, so you have to leave, right?
Right. If they can take the landlord to LTV, or the landlord has to take them practically, just saying they're not paying the rent that they asked. And I don't know the way that the case laws and the LTV decisions are going. I didn't have any specific cases like that. I'm dealing with one now. If I know anything, I'll let you guys know. But I'm not sure. And there's a dispute between if that unit was built and occupied before that date or it wasn't, because this unit apparently is very close to that exemption date, right? So I'm not sure
Yes,
the way that they're going, but it's not gonna happen like tomorrow. Listen, you either have to pay me this or you have to leave, right? So I'm not sure the way
yes,
that the board members they're deciding on this, but it's not something that happens right away.
sure. One question, if I may, one more. Um, So there is a tenant living in a condo that's there's noise coming from the, I don't know, from somewhere. So he already has reported the noise bothering him and he wants to leave. However, he's been there only maybe 2, 3 months. What's his right to just
Sorry, can
leave?
you ask the
The lease is,
question again?
yeah. So the Okay, so there's a tenant that's live in a condo apartment. After a while, find out there is a noise coming from somewhere. You know, it really bothers him. He has already reported to the property management, has already reported to landlord. You know, and then it's just, I think it consider kind of environmentally not suitable or inhabitable for him to live there because the noise is middle of the night and it stops and the noise coming back. Nobody knows where the noise coming from. They cannot fix it. They haven't fixed it. So he really, after 3 months living in 3 or 4 months living in that condo, wants to leave. What's his right? Can he just, and has
He
all the
needs to
right to
talk to us
move
and we
out?
have to see what kind of noise is that, right? And what steps he has taken to notify the landlord and what steps they have taken to
Yes.
fix it. And the case laws, they are different, but usually it's not easy to
Oh.
get off the lease, but it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's possible.
It's possible, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just one last question regarding that I know you cannot say no pet, but can you write this sentence, landlord prefers no pet, non-smoker,
It is
or no?
not prefer like again, I believe on its face, you're saying no to these kind of people, right? So
Hmm. Yeah,
more or less it's the same.
same thing. So it's better not to even mention that, right?
I wouldn't mention it.
You wouldn't. Okay, thank you
No.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Adriana, you have a question?
Yes. So if I wanna rent, just as I buying or selling the unit of my client in the basement, but it's not a legal basement, do I have to have any consideration about it, or I just go for my business and I don't ask questions?
I believe you need to make sure that unit is legally rentable, right? The
Yeah, but it's
legality
not.
has to be there.
But I know that it's not. It's not
So
legally.
I would this is not something related to landlord and tenant board. This is something related to your own board and the government body that you're dealing with, right? Ask your broker, ask the lawyers and ask your regulator to see what you can do with these kind of situations for advertising and renting out these kind of units. Because as far as I know, you cannot advertise an illegal basement unit for rent. But double check with them.
That's a good point. I know agents are renting the basement that are not legal. It is not permitted with my brokerage at EXP Realty. You cannot lease the basement that are
Yeah.
not legal. If they are legal, that's okay, but nothing that is not permitted. Now, also remember, correct me here, Daniel, a basement that is promoted as in-law basement is different in terms of permit from the city than a legal basement. Am I right?
What do you mean like an in-law
Like if
basement?
you go to the city, say, I want to finish my basement, give me permission to finish the basement. That's number one. Or go to city, said, I want to have a legal basement to rent. So these are two different issues.
Yeah,
correct?
finishing basement is usually, for example, nobody can sleep there. It's just used for recreational or whatever use that they want to use, right? And it's for the same household that they're living on the main floor. Absolutely, that's different from renting it out to different people, right?
Okay, so when you go, be careful, when you go to the landlord, they say, oh, we have all the permits from the city. Permit for what? Finishing the basement or having it promoted as a legal basement? So these are two different things. So just be careful, the way that the landlords possibly, or sometimes they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But it is our responsibility to make sure, is it permit to build the basement, or is it permit to make it legal basement to rent? Totally different story.
Yeah, and specifically if you have a client who wants to have the maximum income from the rental unit, make sure that they want to rent out the house to two different people, right? Because they're sharing the same ventilation. Some houses, most of the houses, they're not soundproof. Like they're gonna have a lot of issues, right? So they're renting the same house to do different families, and basically they are sharing the same house, right? So the landlord will get the kickback and say, listen, the downstairs is making too much noise, the upstairs is doing this, and the landlord is responsible for those kind of actions, right? So if you want to buy a unit for your client and say, listen, you can do this, tell them the truth of what kind of issues they can expect in the future, right? Some people, they just, if they can't afford it, buy them a smaller unit, buy them a townhouse, buy them a condo, and make sure that they're happy with it. Because if your client is not a professional landlord and they don't want to deal with a lot of issues in the rental unit, then sometimes having two tenants in one old house, it's not gonna do it for them, right? And selling the house with two different tenants, you're gonna have a lot of challenges. So make sure that property is suitable for your client before you even recommend it to them.
Great, thank you. Any other question? All good? Daniel, thank you very much for coming. Next week, guys, we are going to cover.
Sorry,
few
Ashley.
hacks. Yeah, you have a question, Rose?
Hi, Ashlyn. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
My question is, what conditions has to be there as a basement to make that a legal basement? What we
So
should concern when we are giving the basement to rent as a realtor, is it like my responsibility or the landlord? And what part is my responsibility to doing that, like for the rent the basement?
again, check that with your brokerage and check that with your regulator to see what kind of documentation and paperwork you need to obtain from the client to see that whether that basement complies with the laws or not. But if you want to obtain a permit, that's something different that you have to call the municipality and the bylaw office. And if you want to list it, you need to have some sort of documentation to show that this unit is different than the main floor, right? That this is a separate legal unit and it's registered with the city.
Yeah, the safest
Thank you.
way would be to check with the city, absolutely, because each city to another city, the things are different. So don't think you know a little bit about what's happening in Toronto applies to Mississauga or to Scarborough. These might be different. Many of this information are already available online, and it is our responsibility to check it out. It's not only help us to learn something new, but also make sure we do things legally. And don't be afraid to tell your clients, no, you cannot rent it, or no, this is not a legal basement. They count on you. As I always said, take the leadership in whatever you do. You are responsible. You will be held responsible if you goofed up on anything. This is the law, whether we like it or not. So wouldn't it be better to take charge and be in control of what we do every single day? Yes, you have to spend a little bit of time educating yourself. It might be complicated. That's why some people like Daniels are here. I call Daniel all the time and asking him for small information here and there. Just want to make sure I don't get a lawsuit for what, $3,000 basement rental. It's not worth it. We know that we try to stay away from rental properties. It's nothing but headache. The reward is not that much. We prefer to sell or buy homes, but sometimes for our clients, we have to do that. So if you do it, they count on you as someone that knows what he's doing. We are professionals. So if that's the case, take the initiative. We just go to the city or go online, give a call. You would be thankful for you spending time educating yourself.
Thanks, Ashton. So for the people that they need my contact information, I've put it on the screen if they want to take a note or if they want to just save that information for themselves. And if there's anything that I can help, just give me a call or shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Again, guys, Monday role play at 9 to 9:30. And we have also next Thursday, we're talking about different hacks, how to increase your production and lead generation. These are the things you might never seen in the past. And I do it actively. These are a little bit techy, but come and I teach you exactly step by step how I do that. So if you have any question during the week, just send me an email. Otherwise, I will see you next week. All the best. And thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you and thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you.